All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a defining piece of military history straight from the freezing mountains of Kashmir in 1947. We're talking about a story of absolutely impossible odds, incredible courage, and a singular, defining moment that quite literally altered the map of a nation.
Okay, let's dive into this. Picture this. It's November 3rd, 1947. The location? Badgam, a usually quiet little village just a few miles from the highly strategic Srinagar airport. Now, on one side, you have just 50 Indian soldiers from the 4th Kuman Regiment. Facing them, over 700 heavily armed tribal combatants. Guys, that's a staggering 1 to 15 survival ratio. The math on that freezing day was brutally, terrifyingly clear. There was absolutely zero hope of survival.
Section 1. The Impossible Stand, November 3, 1947. Leading these 50 vastly outnumbered men was a 24-year-old major. And here's the visceral, almost unbelievable detail of this encounter. His left arm was heavily wrapped in a plaster cast. He couldn't even hold his rifle properly to defend himself. Yet he was standing directly in the path of absolute destruction, responsible for holding the line. As the enemy closed in and heavy mortar fire started raining down, a message crackled over the wireless set back to headquarters. It said, "I shall not withdraw an inch, but will fight to our last man and our last round." I really need you to grasp the gravity of this. These aren't just dramatic lines written for some Hollywood movie script. These were the actual, final words transmitted by that young major, words that literally saved the Srinagar airport from falling into enemy hands. Section 2. The Kashmir Crisis, Partition and Invasion. Let's move to and see how this builds, because to truly understand why this desperate stand had to happen, we really need to look at the root of the conflict. Back in August 1947, during the incredibly painful and chaotic partition of India and Pakistan, over 500 princely states had to choose which nation to join. Maharaja Hari Singh, the ruler of Kashmir, hesitated. He was dreaming of an independent state, But that hesitation, well, it opened the door to a rapidly escalating crisis. By the last week of October 1947, a covert plan was already set into motion. It was called Operation Gulmarg. This was a military strategy to equip tribal combatants with modern weapons and push them right into Kashmir to capture the territory. And the grim reality of this operation? It was felt immediately in places like Muzaffarabad, Uri, and Baramulla, where horrific massacres unfolded, sparing literally no one. The city of Baramulla was just left burning. These invaders, they operated with a very clear three-step strategy. Step 1. Invade and destroy Baramulla. Step 2, advance and capture the Srinagar airport. And Step 3, which was absolutely crucial, use that capture to cut off any possibility of Indian reinforcements landing in the valley. The logic here was simple and deadly. If the airport fell, Kashmir would be lost forever. Time was rapidly slipping away. Following partition in August, the invasion officially begins on October 22nd. Panicking as the enemy nears the capital, the Maharaja signs the Instrument of Accession on October 26th, officially making Kashmir a part of India. But let's be real, paperwork doesn't stop bullets. By the very next morning, October 27th, the Indian Air Force launched a massive, historic airlift, using Dakota aircraft to fly troops directly into Srinagar. We are talking about one of the largest and most dangerous airlifts in history. And among those troops, the 4th Kumaon Regiment. Section 3. A Soldier's Stubborn Resolve, Major Somnath Sharma. The man leading the D Company of the 4th Kumaon was born in 1923 into a highly decorated military family in Himachal Pradesh. But he wasn't just a soldier on paper. He was a true warrior whose raw courage had already been severely tested on the brutal stage of World War II. During the Arakan campaign in Burma in World War II, fighting against the Japanese, Major Sharma proved that selfless courage was literally in his blood. Under heavy enemy fire, without even a second thought for his own life, he hoisted his wounded orderly, Bahadur, onto his own shoulders and carried him all the way to safety. I mean, this is exactly the kind of man we are talking about. But right before the Kashmir deployment, there's a pretty surprising twist. Major Sharma had severely fractured his left arm playing hockey. His entire arm was encased in a plaster cast. The doctors ordered strict bed rest, and naturally, his commanding officer flat out refused to let him deploy. Because think about it, a soldier with one working arm is a liability, right? Well, Major Sharma stubbornly argued back. He insisted that he knew his company inside and out, and there was no way his men were going into a war zone without him. His sheer willpower literally forced his commanders to yield, and he deployed with his men. Section 4. Ambush at Badgam, Deception and Attack. It's October 31st when Major Sharma's D Company finally arrives in Srinagar. Since the Indian army is blocking the main roads, the enemy gets clever. They abandon the highways and start using hidden, narrow routes to sneak toward the airport. And Badgam, that was a village situated directly on those hidden routes. On the freezing morning of November 3rd, the D Company is sent out to patrol Badgam. At 11 a.m., it looks like a totally peaceful village. Locals are doing their chores, there's zero sign of danger. By 2 p.m., Major Sharma actually radios an all-clear back to headquarters, getting ready to return his men to base. But then, at exactly 2:30 p.m., that deceptive calm utterly shatters. A sudden sniper shot rings out from one of the village houses. It turns out those villagers were heavily armed tribal combatants in disguise, just waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is just how wildly outmatched the Indian soldiers were here. The tactical disadvantage was immense. You've got over 700 enemies holding the high ground, equipped with mortars and light machine guns. Opposing them, Major Sharma's 50 men trapped in completely open ground, with their ammunition rapidly depleting. Now, he could have easily ordered a retreat to save his life, but he looked at the map, and retreating meant giving the enemy a clear, unhindered path straight to the Srinagar airport. So, he chose to hold the line. What happens next completely defies all human limits. Major Sharma, absolutely ignoring the fact that his left arm is broken and wrapped in plaster, starts sprinting between the open trenches. Mortars are exploding all around him. Bullets are flying everywhere, but he's running directly to his men to boost their morale. When he realizes they are running out of bullets, he rips open the ammunition boxes. Using only his one good hand and his teeth, he desperately starts loading magazines and tossing them to his soldiers to keep the defensive line alive. Section 5. The Supreme Sacrifice, Paying with Blood. The battle was raging. The enemy was advancing to within 50 yards, and the young major knew that reinforcements from headquarters would take time. He had to buy that precious time with the only currency he had left, his own blood. At exactly 3 p.m. on that fateful day, tragedy strikes. While Major Sharma was sitting in a trench, actively distributing ammunition to his men, a deafening mortar shell landed directly next to him. When the dust and smoke finally cleared from that massive explosion, their beloved commander was gone. He had made the ultimate sacrifice for his nation. Now, you might expect a severely outnumbered unit to completely break after watching their leader fall, but instead, his martyrdom ignited an absolute volcano within the surviving men. Remembering his final radio message to fight to the last man, these fiercely focused soldiers held off a massive force of 700 enemies for 6 agonizing hours. Even without their leader, they did not yield a single inch of ground. And those 6 hours literally changed the course of history. By the time the enemy finally broke and retreated, those 50 men of the 4th Kumaon had killed over 200 invaders. But far more importantly, those 6 agonizing hours bought just enough time for the 1st Sikh Regiment and the Indian Air Force aircraft to arrive as reinforcements. The Srinagar airport was secured. Kashmir was saved. Section 6. Legacy of the First. A Nation's Gratitude. The aftermath of this battle isn't just about successful military strategy. No, it's about the profound, unbreakable spirit of the men who fought it and what they left behind for all the generations to follow. When Major Somnath Sharma's body was finally recovered from the battlefield, they found something incredibly poignant in his breast pocket. It was a small, pocket-sized Bhagavad Gita. He carried it with him always, deeply embodying its ancient teaching that while the physical body is mortal and temporary, the soul and its righteous duty are completely immortal. For his unimaginably selfless leadership, his absolute disregard for his own safety, and for literally saving Kashmir against completely impossible odds, Major Somnath Sharma was posthumously awarded independent India's highest military honor. He became the very first recipient of the Parambir Chakra. So I'll leave you with this final, provocative thought. We breathe free air today, we look at maps with secure borders, and we admire the beautiful valleys of Kashmir. But do we truly remember the price paid in the snows of Badgam? Major Somnath Sharma and his 50 men teach us that true defeat only happens when we stop fighting for what matters. Thank you for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and please, never forget the heroes who paid for our today with their tomorrow.